Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accessing Public Service Loan Forgiveness webinar. My name is Ling, and I'm the Membership Director with California Association of Nonprofits, CalNonprofits for short. I hope everyone has settled and staying cool in this weather, and let's get started. To kick off the webinar, I would like to introduce Jen Masaoka, CalNonprofits CEO. Take it away, Jen.
Thanks, Lynn. I love the idea of asking everybody their temperature today. Welcome, everybody. We're expecting almost 700 people today, so I want to get started right away. I want to also thank in advance Celina Damian and Cooley, both of them from the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. And something we really pride ourselves on at CalNonprofits is really bringing people, the actual experts, and Celina and Koo are definitely that. So, and we also, as Lynn mentioned, we also have Mary Birnbaum today as our captioner, and then also our off-camera staff, Vanessa Cruz and Lynn No. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, that's just the agenda. Next slide. Sorry, I should have done that earlier. Okay, just a couple bits of context for people. Almost 200,000 nonprofit staff in California have student debt, and 2/3 of them have $30,000 or more in debt. So that's very significant. And this is the most important thing. The estimate that only 20% of the people eligible for student debt forgiveness have enrolled in the program. So that means not only is it important that all of you enroll in the program, but that you tell everybody else and that we get that number up. For one thing, it's going to help all those people enormously. And in addition to helping individuals, we care about this issue in part because it also hurts nonprofits' ability to be effective. We need to recruit and retain crucial staff. And among those that are particularly suffering from student debt burdens are people who are first-generation graduates, women, people of color, and people from lower income families. And we need these people to be part of our workforce so that we can continue to do the important work that we do. This also makes student debt an issue for nonprofit managers and for boards, not just for those who have student debt. Next slide. So this is a perfect example, our nonprofit student debt project, of how we work on both the education and the advocacy side. On the education side, we do things like this, webinars for how to make sure that you get enrolled. We also provide individual guidance for staff of CalNonprofits members, and Lynn is going to talk about that a little bit more towards the end. And then on our advocacy side, we work on a lot of bills. I see that our Sacramento advocate Jennifer Fearing is on today's webinar, and she spearheads our work supporting various kinds of bills related to this. We appeared with the Attorney General earlier this year and with Celina to discuss the investment that the state of California is putting into helping people get relief from student debt. And another part of this, just so that you know, was also kind of going upstream, and that is trying to prevent people from predatory student debt lenders. And that's also part of this, but I know today is really about people that already have student debt. Okay, next slide. So now, let's see, gosh, okay, I want to introduce Celina Damian and Cooley. And they have, I don't know, something like 150 slides. No, I'm kidding. But we're going to try to keep the questions. So write your questions in the Q&A box rather than in the chat box so that we can keep good track of them. And Celina, I just want to start by thanking you for making the time to do this. I know you're really busy. You're managing everything related to student debt in California, which has got to be a pretty big job. So thank you so much for taking the time to help our folks today. Okay, on to you.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the introduction, for having DFPI. It is our pleasure to be here today to share this information. I know there is so much going on, and I'm sure that there are a lot of folks that are really interested, and not just for themselves, but to help their clients, to help the populations that they serve. So it's my pleasure. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about who we are. The California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation is the state's consumer protection agency. We are the California counterpart to the CFPB, which is the Federal Consumer Protection Agency. Our duties include licensing and examining companies of financial products to ensure compliance, and this includes student loan servicers. We investigate consumer complaints, we take legal action when companies are not in compliance, and we conduct education and outreach, such as this one, to enhance consumer awareness. We protect consumers from fraud and abuse as well. Next, please. Some more numbers on student loan debt. There are 4 million Californians that owe $156 billion in federal and private student loan debt, and that is mostly federal. In 2019 and 2020, 46% of California college graduates had student loan debt, and 35 to 49-year-olds owe the most debt on average, with women carrying most of the larger amount of debt. The average debt load of a California borrower is $37,783. And prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, approximately 500,000 borrowers were behind on paying their loans. As of this last Friday, the total student loan debt in the United States is $1.9 trillion, with it being now the second highest consumer debt category after mortgages. Next, please. In 2019, Assemblymember Mark Stone introduced the California Student Borrower Bill of Rights. This is an important protection for California student borrowers. The federal government did provide student borrower protections, but they didn't have the safeguards to help borrowers get out of debt and to stay out of debt, which led to the student debt crisis we're in. The Student Borrower Bill of Rights was introduced as Assembly Bill 376, and it applies to student loan servicers doing business in California. It applies to borrowers with federal and private loans, and it was codified as Civil Section 1788.100. California is only one of 13 states that has established advanced legislation such as AB 376 to strengthen the oversight of student loan servicers and protect borrowers. And before I move on, just to give you some key terms so you'll understand when I'm talking about servicers, there's a difference between servicers and lenders. The lender is the company that actually lends the borrower the money. The lender will be the Department of Education, the state, or a state. It could be your school, it could be a private lender. They're the ones that are actually setting the terms of the loan. The servicers are the borrower's main point of contact. The servicer is the company that sends out the bills, the company that maintains the record, the company that takes the payments. So they are the company, the person that the borrower is calling to get information. Next, please. What kind of protections did the Student Bill of Rights establish? Well, it established that servicers cannot engage in abusive, unfair, or deceptive practices. It requires that servicers work in the best interest of borrowers. Servicers must provide accurate information about payment plans, forgiveness plans, and respond to requests in a timely manner. The Bill of Rights establishes special protections for military borrowers, borrowers working in public service, older borrowers, and borrowers with disabilities. It also established my position, the California Student Loan Ombudsperson position, to work with other agencies, with stakeholders, and to do outreach, educate borrowers, and assist borrowers as well. Next slide, please. So before I talk about public service loan forgiveness, I want to talk about some important federal student loan updates that have been announced. Some have already been in place, but in order for everyone to understand the different programs that are going on and how to be able to help borrowers, I want to talk about these briefly. Under the CARES Act, the student loan pause started back in March 2020. Many of the borrowers may have already benefited from this and may still be right now in payment pause. During the pause, no payments were required and interest rates were set to 0% for federal student loans. It was just announced that the final extension will be December 31st, 2022. Payments will be resuming January 1st, 2023. Regardless of everything of the cancellation, PSLF, we are just advising borrowers to just still ensure that their contact information is updated, ensure that they're on the correct repayment plan, as things may have changed during the pause, economic, financial situation, jobs, family. So just make sure that you are on the correct repayment plan. Your servicer should be able to assist you with that. Additionally, there is another lesser known forgiveness program. It's the income-driven repayment program. In the fall, the Department of Education will be conducting a one-time account adjustment. Under the income-driven repayment forgiveness plan, borrowers who have been on an income-driven repayment plan and have been paying for a period of 20 or 25 years are eligible for forgiveness after a period of time. Well, there was, due to a lack of servicer oversight and servicer mistakes, tracking wasn't done very well. Therefore, the Department of Education will be conducting this one-time adjustment where they will be giving people credit for qualifying payments for direct loans and FFEL loans. So borrowers will receive credit for any months in which they made payments, regardless of the payment plan. They will be receiving credit where for months, 12 or more months of consecutive forbearance or 36 or more months of cumulative forbearance and months spent in deferment prior to 2013, other than in-school deferment. Borrowers with FFEL loans will have to consolidate in order to benefit from this adjustment. Federal Student Aid or FSA estimates that these changes will result in immediate debt cancellation for at least 40,000 borrowers under the PSLF program. So these are borrowers that are already enrolled in public service loan forgiveness, but they had gaps of forbearance, deferments, or under the wrong payment plan. So this is another benefit that will go hand in hand with PSLF, which we'll talk about in a minute. Several thousand borrowers with older loans will also receive forgiveness through the income-driven repayment plan, and more than 3.6 million borrowers will also receive at least 3 years of additional credit towards IDR forgiveness. This adjustment will benefit borrowers that have those older FFEL loans, pre-direct loan, pre-2010. Okay, next slide, please. Another program that was announced was the Fresh Start program, which is a program that will benefit borrowers that are in default. It's going to enable 7.5 million borrowers with defaulted federal student loans to receive a fresh start by opting into the program. The program will give access to IDR plans that provide more affordable monthly payments. Borrowers who opt into the program will regain access to Title IV federal student aid, including federal student grants, loans, or work-study funds. Borrowers will not be subject to any collection efforts or collection fees, and the program will last for a period of 1 year from the end of the repayment pause. Therefore, it will start January 1st of 2023 and will go through the end of the year. Borrowers must take action and make arrangements with Department of Education. Default Resolution Group is the default agency that they work with, and so they would need to call in to opt into the program. But this program, although it doesn't apply to a lot of people, it really helps borrowers who are in default, who have been negatively affected and not able to get back on track. So this one here is a great program. And next, please. And then the most recent announcement, which a lot of people are curious about, it's the Biden's student loan cancellation announcement. Under this cancellation, borrowers will receive up to $20,000 in debt cancellation if they are Pell Grant recipients, and up to $10,000 in debt cancellation if they are non-Pell Grant recipients. As long as you received one Pell Grant at any moment, if you had different loans during different periods, as long as you received a Pell Grant once, you qualify for the $20,000 in debt relief. And it doesn't matter if the Pell Grant was used for the same program of study or at the same school as your federal student loan. It applies to loans disbursed prior to June 30th, 2022. And relief is capped at your outstanding federal debt. For example, if you have only $8,000 in debt, but then you receive the $10,000 or qualify for the $10,000, you would only receive the $8,000 and wouldn't receive any type of refund. Borrowers are eligible for this relief if their annual income is less than $125,000 for individuals or $250,000 per household. They will be using the AGI and looking at income from either the 2020 or 2021 tax year. If they have income information for both years, they will use the year with the lowest amount. Eligible direct loans include undergraduate, graduate, spousal, parent plus loan, and default loans. And this is great news because parent plus loans many times are left out of programs. For parent plus loans, if a parent has their own student loans and they received a Pell Grant for their own loans, they can qualify for the $20,000. But if they only have the parent plus for their child, then they would only qualify for the $10,000. So that's gonna make a difference. Commercially held FFEL borrowers will need to consolidate their loans to benefit from the cancellation. Just make sure that you know what debt you have, make sure that you know your loan balance, and before consolidating, because consolidating is this almost like refinancing. And so you want to make sure that when you consolidate that the relief you're receiving will cover that entire amount. The process will be automatic for most borrowers who already had a FAFSA on file for the year 2020 or 2021, or for those borrowers who had submitted a recent income-driven repayment certification, since they have to certify every year. If not, there will be an application available on the FSA website starting early October for those whose cancellation is not automatic. We're just advising everybody to just be ready early October and to just submit an application anyway. FSA or Department of Education estimates they have about income data for about 8 million borrowers, which is not too many. So you want to make sure that you log on to the studentaid.gov website, and then you can receive a notification of the application through their subscription service or just through your account. And then forgiveness is only one part of the plan. There are other income-driven repayment, interest provisions that right now have not been put in place, but they're going to be useful, going to be really beneficial to future borrowers, as well as a new forgiveness plan. The next slide, please. Okay, now let's talk about public service loan forgiveness. So just remember, these three that I just talked about are separate programs. They can all work together to add more credit to PSLF, but public service loan forgiveness, it's a program on its own. So public service loan forgiveness is a program that was enacted under the College Cost Reduction and Access Act of 2007. It was created to encourage individuals to enter and remain in public service occupations. It was created to alleviate student loan burden for those entering public service where they may earn less than those in private sector. Under the program, forgiveness is granted after satisfying certain criteria for 10 years. Borrowers first became eligible to apply for PSLF on October 1st, 2017, 10 years after the creation of the program. Next, please. Let's talk about the traditional requirements. And I'm going to keep using the word traditional because right now during the waiver, these traditional requirements, some of them have been waived. Okay, under the traditional requirements for public service loan forgiveness, you have to have the right type of loan, you have to be on the right type of repayment plan, you have to have the right type of employment, and you have to have the right number of qualifying payments. All these things have to be happening at the same time for you to receive credit towards the program. Next, please.
Celina, can I interrupt you for just a
Yes.
second? And so I just want to remind participants that if you go look at the Q&A box, there's a little button on the bottom there, that Ku is very kindly answering a lot of individual questions there as well. So you can, if you want to see what other people have been asking, you can click on the little tab that says answered. So thank you, Ku, for that.
Okay. Okay, so you have to have the right type of loan. You must have a federal direct loan. It can be subsidized or unsubsidized. All loans made on or after July 1st, 2010 are direct loans. Prior to this date, you had your FEL loans, Stafford, Perkins loans, and some direct loans. Private loans do not qualify for PSLF. You have to be under the right type of repayment plan. It is best to be under an income-driven repayment plan, an IDR plan, which is a payment plan that's based on your income. Under an IDR plan, your payments can be as low as $0. The 10-year standard repayment plan also qualifies you, but under the 10-year standard repayment plan, you're scheduled to pay off your loan in 10 years. Therefore, you wouldn't get any benefit because you wouldn't have any balance left after the 10 years. Therefore, an IDR plan is best with if you're applying for PSLF or working towards PSLF. Next, please. You also have to have the right type of employment, or what we call qualifying employment. You can be an employment of a government organization at any level, federal, state, local, or tribal, and includes the U.S. military. Can be an employee of a nonprofit organization that is 501c3 exempt, and you have to be working full-time. Full-time is either what your employer considers full-time or at least 30 hours per week. You can work more than one job part-time as long as the combined average of these employments average at least 30 hours per week. You would just be submitting more than one certification. It does not matter what you do, it matters what you work for. And this is very important because a lot of people get discouraged thinking they have to be a certain position. It does not matter. You could be in clerical and admin, you could be in maintenance, you could be in the legal research department, you can be a teacher, an attorney, it does not matter. So yeah, just make sure that your employees know that or coworkers know that, as long as they are employed by one of these organizations. Next, please. Then the PSLF qualifying payments. You have to have 120 qualifying payments. They must be made after October 1st, 2007, which was when the program was created. These payments do not have to be consecutive. If you took some time off to go work in private service, or you took some time off for whatever reason, you can come back and pick up where you left off and you'll continue receiving credit. Payments must be made on time and in full. And remember, this is the traditional requirement. Payments cannot be made while in default, and they have to be made while you are employed by the full-time by the qualifying employer. Next, please. So let's talk about the waiver. The waiver was created October 31st of 2021. In 2017, when the first batch of borrowers applied for PSLF, there was almost 99% denial rate for not meeting the traditional program requirements. This was because there was a lack of program oversight, borrower confusion, misunderstanding, servicers were not providing the correct information, and there was just a lot of confusion. Therefore, this waiver was created to help those borrowers. Under the waiver, most of the PSLF qualifying payment rules have been suspended through October 31st of this year. Under the waiver, borrowers may now receive credit for payments that previously did not qualify for PSLF. Approximately 130,000, is probably higher at this point, have received cancellation since its announcement relative to fewer than 20,000 before the waiver. Next, please. So let's talk about the waiver requirements. The traditional requirement is that you have a direct loan. During the waiver period, a borrower can consolidate those older loans, FFEL, Perkins, or other federal loans into the direct loans. Then, once they consolidate, they can receive credit for previous payments made on those loans. If you did this during the outside of the waiver period, you would start your count at 0 when you consolidated, but during the waiver, they're allowing borrowers to receive credit. Parent plus loans are not included unless consolidated. If a parent plus loan is consolidated during the waiver period, they will start at 0, the parent plus loan on its own. But if a parent plus loan is consolidated with a borrower's own student loan, then that loan will receive credit for the borrower's own loan, and they can get the parent plus forgiven under their credit, given credit under their loan. It's a little confusing, but we can answer questions on that if needed. Employment. The traditional employment requirement is that you have to be working at that employer at the time of forgiveness. That has been waived during the waiver period. Qualifying payments. You can receive during the waiver past periods of repayment, whether or not you made that payment on time for the full amount due or on a qualifying repayment plan. What was happening was that prior to the waiver, if a borrower paid 1 cent under, 1 day late, if they made an overpayment trying to get ahead of trying to pay their balance off quicker, they were not getting credit, a qualifying credit for that month. The waiver changes all that. In addition, as I mentioned before with the IDR adjustment, certain periods of forbearance and deferment may count. They're going to be adding those months onto your PSLF 120 required payments. Also, COVID forbearance months count towards PSLF. All these months that borrowers have not had to make payments, almost 30 months, will be counted towards PSLF credit if a borrower is enrolled in the program. Next, please. This is a federal student aid, their landing page, the login page. This is where all of these processes that I'm going to be talking about in the next few slides, where a borrower has to go to download their data, check their employer, do the PSLF help tool, and consolidate. Next. So what does a borrower have to do? Well, they first have to find out if their employer is a qualified public service employer. FSA has an employer eligibility search tool where a borrower can check if the employer has already been certified. The borrower will need the employer's federal employee ID number, and they don't need to create a login, an account, or anything. They can just go onto that page, enter the FEIN, their employment dates. They can make up a date, and it'll say if the employer is already certified. If the employer is not there, it doesn't necessarily mean that the employer doesn't qualify. It just means that no one from that agency has applied for PSLF. So if you see the employer certified, it means someone either is already enrolled in the program, and it just makes it easier for borrowers. Borrowers need to find out what loans do they have. Again, they will go to FSA, create an account if they don't have one, and then they can download their aid data there. And then they won't have to consolidate the loans if they don't have a direct loan. All loans will be consolidated into one direct loan with one interest rate. It's similar to refinancing. They will be transferred to a new servicer, and the process can take up to 4 weeks, even longer now. So we are very close to the waiver end date. So that's why this is extremely important. And like I said before, the consolidation process will not reset the PSLF count if done prior to October 31st, 2022. And that's extremely important. And that is where borrowers get the benefit. They don't have to finish the process before October 31st, they just have to submit the PSLF application. Next, please. So after a borrower consolidates, they may have to consolidate, they may not. They complete the public service loan forgiveness certification and application. The employer certification has to be filled out by someone, can be filled out by someone in HR or personnel office. Really, it can be filled out by anyone in management that has the authority to certify employment. They will need the employer's federal employer ID number and complete dates of employment. And then the borrower submits the PSLF form and they wait for the updated PSLF count or forgiveness. The process may take several months. So as I said, at this point, as long as the consolidation and the PSLF application is submitted by October 31st, then the borrower will fall under the waiver and can benefit from the waiver benefits. Borrowers are urged to apply even if they were denied before or if they do not have the qualifying payments, because with all these other changes that are going on, it could add more time to their counts. Next, please. And this is the public service loan forgiveness application, certification and application. As you can see, it's a very simple application. It can be completed online through the FSA help tool. It can be filled out and then it's downloaded, printed, and then it's provided to the employer for them to sign. The only thing I advise is just make sure FEIN numbers are correct, make sure all the boxes are checked, signatures are legible or dates are legible. We're having a lot of problems with these forms getting denied or sent back because of a check mark, because they don't understand the dates, because they did only put the year. So just try to, as an employer and a borrower, just try to make sure these are as clear, legible as possible to avoid any delays. If a borrower is not able to get in touch with the employer, let's say they had a previous employer, and they're not able to get in touch with them, or if they're not getting any response, have them reach out to me. I'm working with borrowers that are not getting response from employers. They're emailing, calling. I'll send them an email, little nudge. Hey, I'm working with the borrower. Can you please sign this form? I get a really good response. If the employer is no longer in business and they're just closed, then the employee will, or the borrower will have to submit a W-2 form, and that process will take longer. That's why I'm trying to help borrowers on my end. But yeah, this is the application. Next, please. And how do we get started, or how do you how does your organization get started helping borrowers? An estimated 160,000 of California nonprofit employees have student loan debt. And in total, 824,418 Californians qualify to have their debts eventually canceled through PSLF. Since the program's creation in 2007, only 13,000 borrowers have received cancellation. Next, please. Employer resources and tips. How can you help your employees? Well, you can promote the PSLF and the waiver. Even after the waiver, the PSLF program will continue. You can use it as a recruitment tool. We're working with our own CalHR to include it in brochures. They've already put information on the website to really help new employees understand that there is this option available if they do decide to come and work for your organization. Answer borrower questions or provide a resource for them. You being here today and just educating yourself is a great start. Providing resources. There are a lot of resources starting with us. That's why my position was created. That's why our student loan program is growing. We're updating our website. There's a lot of work working with federal agencies. Have someone in your agency that maybe is the go-to person. Simplify the employment certification. Some employees like I said, have a hard time just getting a response from their employers. They get sent around, they get their emails get bounced around because they don't have a person. Just have someone maybe internally in HR that signs it, and just check their PSLF applications, make sure their FEIN is correct. DFPI has also joined the California Student Debt Challenge, and any organization is welcome to join. It's basically where DFPI took a pledge that we will inform employees, that we will help borrowers understand how to join the program and just give them the resources. If you join the challenge, you get an employer toolkit. The White House has also launched 4 PSLF days of action in September, dedicated to borrowers in specific sectors, and September 14 has been deemed Private Nonprofit Day of Action. FSA has also an employer resource toolkit. It has, again, information, it has email templates, it has social media templates that you could use, again, not just during the waiver period prior to October 31st, but moving forward, because with all these changes, and we know that borrowers have this debt, it's great for their employers to get involved and to really help them in that area. Next, please. And now that concludes my portion of the presentation. I will hand it over now to Kuli, who is my colleague and director of our targeted outreach. Thank you.
Thank you, Celina, and hello, everyone. My name is Kuli. I'm the targeted outreach director for the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. I wanted to go over 2 very small slides before I hand it back to Celina. Earlier this year, Governor Newsom announced, in his budget proposal, he announced that he would be giving $10 million to our department to start a grant program. Part of this $10 million, which I think is ending up being closer to about $7.5 million, is going to be dedicated towards the grant program. Here it is. Yeah, $7.25 million for the grant program. And once the legislature approved it, we are developing this grant program. The purpose of the grants, the purpose of the grant program is for nonprofits to apply, and the grant proposals that are to be submitted, or the programs, basically the programs need to be supporting student loan borrowers. And it could be a lot of different things. Right now, we're still in the process of narrowing down the actual grant program itself. There's a lot of decision making that needs to be done, right? Things like the goals and that they want to achieve, the key performance indicators to achieving those goals, reporting, all that kind of good stuff. So again, I do want to share the fact that the department is developing this grant program. Our estimated time to launch the grant program is about mid Q1, so like February of next year, roughly. And we will send out more information about this grant program. So essentially, for the grant program, nonprofits can apply for it. Again, the program, the different program that you would, if you're interested in applying for this grant program, the different things that you can have is basically supporting student loan borrowers. It could be anything from legal aid to assisting students with their student loan issues, or even just creating awareness, right? So again, more details about this particular grant program will be sent out in the future. Celina will talk about how you can subscribe to our email newsletter. And again, we will definitely send out a press release later this year once the grant program has been finalized. Next slide. Yes.
This is Jan. Quite a few people really want to hear what you're saying. Can you just talk a little bit louder and maybe repeat the main point if you can?
Yeah, of course. I apologize for that. So Governor Newsom approved a total of $10 million to create a grant program, which California nonprofits can apply for. This grant money is to be used to help or to provide assistance to student loan borrowers. So whether it's providing services to help student loan borrowers deal with their student debt, maybe helping them through the application process, or even providing legal aid to student loan borrowers. We're still kind of narrowing it down, the different parameters of our grant program, and we are anticipating to launch the actual grant program in roughly February 2023. Okay. What I will say is, if you want more information, you can go to dfpi.ca.gov/subscribe. You could sign up for our newsletter, and when you sign up for the newsletter, when we make the announcement about the grant program, when it's available, and then more details about the grant program, you'll get all the information as soon as we're able to release it. We also plan to have a press release probably later this year, if not January at the very latest, which will provide more information about this particular grant program. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the things that we've launched, the DFPI has launched, is a huge campaign for student loan borrowers. We call it Back on Track. There's a dedicated web page for it, and you can see the link right there on the slides. It's dfpi.ca.gov/backontrack. If you go there, it's a landing page which has it's basically a portal to a bunch of other different resources. So we have a page that lists all the different events we do, things like other webinars we host, talking about student loan debts, talking about the different types of loans. That's a webinar that's coming up. The public service loan forgiveness waiver. We had a workshop a couple of months ago, and we also have a list of all the past webinars that we've done. So if you are interested, please feel free to, again, go to that link, check out all the different resources that we have on there. You can also subscribe to our newsletter using that link. It's all there. And again, one of the things we're trying to do is generate awareness to California student loan borrowers. And it may not just be you, it might be your friends and family, people you know that have some kind of student loan. And again, what we really need your help doing is promoting this link, dfpi.ca.gov/backontrack. We're pushing it everywhere, our social media channels, as well as our website. And then of course these webinars, again, trying to get everyone to go on the webpage and get the necessary resources they need. Not everyone works for a nonprofit, but there are some fantastic resources and information. There are other nonprofits that are listed on our web page as resources to help students out, to help student loan borrowers out with their debt. So yeah, that's kind of all the different slides I have. I'll be continuing to answer questions in the Q&A, so please put them in there. Celina, back to you.
Thank you, Ku. I want to talk now briefly about another important topic and something we may not typically think about, but it's happening. And so I want to take a few slides to just warn everyone about student loan scams. With everything that's going on, the announcement, especially now with the new announcement of the cancellation, scammers are on overdrive. What is happening is they are calling, sending texts, sending official looking letters to anyone really. They're promising to reduce or eliminate student debt. They're offering quick loan forgiveness. They're promising special access to repayment plans, new federal loan consolidations, or loan forgiveness programs. They tell you won't miss out on eligibility. It's a limited time offer. And they ask for payment to process the application. They'll ask for your FSA ID, username, or password. So they're going to ask for personal information. I just spoke to a borrower last week who received a call from one of these scammers, and they actually already had some of their information. The information they provided wasn't correct as far as how much forgiveness they could provide, or they were promising. It wasn't correct, but they sounded very legit. The borrower did provide the payment information, but then was able to immediately cancel it once he realized that it wasn't the Department of Education. Next slide, please. what we want people to know is that there is nothing that a debt relief company, which really that's what these are, they're debt relief companies, or they're like application processing companies. There's nothing that they can do that a borrower can't do on their own. Any of these consolidations, anything through us, through FSA, nothing, there is no charge. It's all free. My service is free to call, to talk to somebody. There's a lot of other nonprofits also offering services, resources, legal aids, but they should not be charging. One thing that I tell everyone is the servicers, especially Department of Education, does not have time to be calling borrowers on the phone 3 times a day. They will not be texting unless you sign up for the actual subscription service through FSA for the new cancellation program. They may send you a text alert saying, hey, the application is now open, but you will have to log on to the website to do the application. You will not have to send any personal information over the phone. Make sure that borrowers or whoever is helping the borrower, they verify the information and they research the company. It's very easy to do. You just Google the name and you will see if it's a scam. You'll see what kind of company pops up. And many times they will say in the very fine print, they will say that they are not affiliated to Department of Education or any other government agency. Go directly to studentaid.gov, as I said. Call the servicer to ask for help with payments. Do not subscribe to any monthly service offering help. The borrower that I just helped last week, they were going to be charging him, I believe, almost $300 a month for a 3-4 month period. And they promised him $60,000 of forgiveness, which I don't know where that number came from, but thankfully he was able to cancel the service. And then you can always call us. You can email me to find out if the company is a fraudulent company. And then you can also, a borrower can also file a complaint with us if they have been a victim of fraud. The FTC is also warning borrowers, and the CFPB is also putting out advisories because like I said, with everything going on and people really, they're taking advantage of borrowers' confusion and the borrowers' eagerness to really participate in these programs and take advantage of these programs. So just especially targeting elderly, non-English speaking borrowers. And they've even called me, but I don't, and this is me from just researching. I don't know how they were able to do it, but just from researching and in my job, and they called me on my personal phone offering to forgive my debt, but I don't have student loan debt. So I mean, but yeah, they were trying to get me as well, but it can happen to anyone. So let's just be aware of that as well. Next, please. And I believe this is our last slide. Here is my email if you have questions about anything that I spoke about today. If I'm not able to get to the questions in the chat, if you have questions about student loans, our contact for the grant program, Danielle Emmons at dfpi.ca.gov. And as Kul mentioned, our page Back on Track, you can subscribe to our to DFPI also to get notifications from us when we have webinars, when we put out important information. And you can see all our prior webinars from our series on our YouTube page, and you'll see our recent PSLF in-depth, very informative website and our student webinar and our student loan webinar as well. So there is a lot of information. I think the only thing I would just suggest, just make sure it's from a reputable source, someone that you trust. And if a borrower, an employee comes to you for questions and you're not sure, please feel free to reach out to me and we can help you and we'll get you to where you need to go. We'll get you the information. Thank you. And that's all for me.
Thank you, Celina and Kul. Thanks very much. And thanks for answering. We have over 90 questions in the Q&A box, and we've succeeded in answering at least a third of them individually. So appreciate that. And it really means a lot that you've given us your emails too, where people can find out more information, because a lot of these questions are really specific. Lynn and I have a few questions we want to ask you based on all the questions, not all of them, but some of them. So we got several questions related to volunteer time. So for example, if you're retired now, could you still qualify? If you used to work for a nonprofit, or does your unpaid work as a volunteer or as an unpaid intern, does any of that count?
For the retired, if during the waiver period, you will be able to, if you apply now and are able to certify, if you need to consolidate, certify, yes, you can qualify for PSLF. So only during the waiver period, you do not have to be employed by that employer. As far as volunteer work, that doesn't count. It has to be paid work.
So in other words, if you're seeing Halloween candy in the store, that means you have to apply right now, especially if you're retired, because the waiver period is still in place. And
Yes.
another question we're hearing quite a bit about is should you wait to what point should you start about getting enrolled or getting your employer enrolled in the program? Should you wait till it's time for you to start making payments? Should you wait for a certain number of payments you make, or when's the right time?
I advise borrowers to apply as soon as they started making payments and they're working, just to start getting on track. And there will be a tracker once they're enrolled in the program through their servicer and FSA. They will have a PSLF tracker where they will be able to see how many qualifying payments they have. So let's say you change employers, so that way you're already certified for that time, and then you go and you certify with them. You don't want to wait 10 years and then have to certify for 3 or 4 employers, and then there's a problem and you realize that something was not right. So that way, as soon as you're able to get enrolled, and then just certify yearly if possible, and that way you could see your tracker go up and you'll see where you are.
And can you fill out that form online? Can you sign it electronically online, or do you have to print it out and mail it, or what do you suggest?
The employer certification form, it does have to be a wet signature. So they're not accepting electronic signatures. So a borrower can start the PSLF application. They can do it online through FSA, but then they will have to print it, download it, print it, and then give that to their employer, get that signature, and then either mail it or upload it to the website.
Okay, and I've actually filled that form out, and it's super easy. I want everybody to be able to tell your bosses or your employers that it's really easy. I kept thinking there must be more pages to this.
Right. The instructions have more pages than the actual
form.
application.
And I also want to just kind of underline something you said earlier too, which is, like we put in our job announcements, for example, that we are a public service loan forgiveness certified employer, and that's an important thing to be able to tell people, and it's a way of attracting people to your organization. Okay.
No, it is. Even with the state, we're doing that. I've been with the state of California for 15 years, and I kind of heard about it back when I had student loans, barely heard about it, but it wasn't, really not a lot of people know about it. So it really is important, especially for those that have more debt and really are dedicated and passionate, and they want to get into this work, and they're looking at their financial futures and making these decisions. So it's really something that they will consider, and it will be important for them. So yeah, it's definitely something that could be used.
Lynn, what are some of the questions you've pulled out?
Yes, there is one that how long it can take to get confirmation after submitting employment verification paperwork for the expanded forgiveness program.
So you can get notification that it was received within a few weeks, but you won't get the actual final answer that they'll do because it's a process, especially if you have to consolidate. So make sure that just the PSLF application to benefit from the waiver is in by the 31st. If you have to mail it and upload it, I would recommend doing both at this point because we are so close. But it will take some time. It will take a few weeks at least for them to tell you that they received the application, to confirm that they've received it. But you may have to be waiting on the actual count and actual forgiveness, especially right now. They just transferred the PSLF portfolio from FedLoan, which was the previous PSLF servicing they were servicing those portfolios. They just transferred them to Mohila. So we're in the middle of, at the end of the waiver and in the middle of these transfers. There's a lot going on. So all I can say is really consolidate if needed, submit the application, submit it, mail it, and upload it. So if you have to do, just ensure that it gets there by the 31st.
Thanks. I have one more question before we go on to some resources to help people individually in addition. So what about contractors? If a person is a private contractor, but most of the people they end up working for are nonprofits, does that count?
No, independent contractors do not qualify. It's going to be the employer. They are 1099 employees. So it's your W-2s that's going to be the determining employer.
Right. Thanks so much again, Celina and Ku.
You're
Thanks so
welcome.
much for coming. I hope it's not like too hot where you are, or it won't be this afternoon. Lynn, I know you have some information you're going to give people about how CalNonprofits can help individuals who are members of CalNonprofit members.
Thank you. We are very happy to share that we partner with Savvy to offer this great tool to our members. Savvy is like the tax prep software for your student loans. You just need to answer a few questions on their secure website, and the software will determine your repayment option, including whether or not you qualify for any loan forgiveness program, and show you what your potential saving could be. You can also receive personalized support from their student loan expert. All CalNonprofits members have access to the free subscription and the paid subscription at a discounted rate. And we at CalNonprofits can only do our advocacy work and policy work because we are supported by thousands of nonprofits statewide. So we hope you enjoy our advocacy coalition and enjoy all the great perks that membership. So here are our contact information. If you have any question, please feel free to contact Celina, our membership team. And I would like to thank all of our speakers today. Celina, Ku have answered like 1,000 of questions in the chat box, and Jan, and also our captioner, Mary and Vanessa, our tech team who have been sharing the slide. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, on the recordings, resources, and slide will be sent out to you in a few days. Thank you again and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye, everybody.